I don't know how soon we want to jump into it if we want to do like some intro, but
Well,
um,
I'll just say, yeah, episode 12, Nick is not green, special guest. He is here.
I'm here.
I,
I
I,
found
I,
myself.
I mean, you just dove right into it. It's perfect because, yeah, you coming from that perspective and
Uh
approaching
huh.
that album in that way. And because I did Taboo first. Yeah, I listened to Taboo first and then
Yeah.
I went to Unlocked. And Unlocked, it was like switch off my brain and just listen
Yeah.
because it's
That's
such a
what I love
party,
about it.
man.
Uh huh.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. That project, the fact that it's 17 minutes, it's Kenny Beats and
Uh huh.
Denzel, and I guess they made it in like a day or something like that, 24
Yeah,
hours.
I've heard different things float around, and I wouldn't be surprised because a lot of times Denzel says stuff about how he just like Ricky apparently. I don't know if you've like dove into Zoo at all yet.
No, I haven't,
Um,
not yet.
but at least for that song, I won't, it won't go any deeper than that. But for Ricky, which is the lead single, he says that he like freestyled all the lyrics and just everything was just like as it came. And I feel like a lot of that come through in Unlocked when it
Totally.
which followed it up.
Yeah.
Um, and I love that because for me, it's like all about feeling the music and following the instrumental, but in the crazy way that he does. And you don't have to I don't have to think about it. I could put it on the background
Yeah.
because it was interesting once I learned that I was going to talk to you about not just Unlocked but Taboo also. I was like, okay, I got to dive back into Taboo but be a little more serious about it because I'm like a huge fan of Taboo,
Yeah.
but I never was like, let's look at what it means because I'm just not that kind of I'm like the person in video games who just wants like the gameplay and I don't want any story or
Yeah,
anything.
right, right. Yeah, you just press X, X, X.
Yes. But
Yeah.
the other parallel is that whenever I learn about the story and decide to push myself and really get into it, or I have someone guide me along who knows the story, I have a way better overall experience, which is the same thing with music. And I'm happy I was able to look into the album also for this as much as I did because it's like it gives you a whole different perspective on everything.
I love it. I mean, it cracks me up sometimes because people will leave comments. They're a little annoyed that I'm pausing, and it's like I get it. Like on one hand, I totally
Mhm.
agree, but I love diving into lyrics. There's just something about it. It's like it's its own little literacy puzzle, especially when you get into
Yeah.
these things where there's like double meanings and
Uh-huh.
lyrics are referencing other tracks, and it's just
Yeah.
I love that kind of stuff. Um,
Yeah, that wasn't something that's something that surprised me when I like started listening to your because I've listened to a few of your reactions, but the ones for Denzel I especially wanted to hear.
yeah,
And you when you started pausing it, I was like, oh, this is interesting because I don't do this at all.
yeah, right, right, right.
Like I never pause to think about it. Like sometimes if I'm in the right mood, I'll think about the lyrics. But I really liked that because it gave me a second to be like, okay, what is I have heard a million times the rapers turn to landscapers when they use gold or poster and housewives when they see
Yeah.
gold or whatever. And like I've heard it a million times, but until you did it for the first time, I didn't it didn't like click in my head how like it's like so obviously clever, but he does it in such a flow where it just
Yeah.
seamlessly glides over such a specific in like clear reference he was able to make.
It's so brutal too. Like
Yeah.
that
Uh-huh.
line is so brutal, but just like you say, he just kind of glides right over it, and you don't
Yeah.
really like. Yeah, it's kind of there, but it doesn't really. It's almost like a subliminal image on the
Yeah.
screen or something. Man, when I read that, I was like, "Holy fuck, that is heavy, heavy, heavy."
Yeah. Which like I never thought of because you really described like the ripping up of like the land and tearing it
Yeah,
up and like the
brutal.
just the that metaphor is so clear and it's like in this song that is super floaty and like but it's all about these black balloons and the
Yeah,
and it's on the light side of the album. It's like such a good portrayal of the whole like outside of it being shiny and fun and like super, you can just sit there and bob your head to it and put it on the background. But it's like the opening of this like entire world that he's building.
yeah.
And I think it's super impressive.
It just this descent into madness, basically.
Yeah.
It's so cool. Like, and what I liked so much about it is I love stories that are the downward spiral where it's this person wrestling with these things and wrestling with these things, and they slowly succumb to it. But this one doesn't feel like a wrestling match at all. It's just like someone off into the darkness.
Yeah.
I love it. It just gets darker and darker and darker and darker.
Yeah. I mean, from the start, it's like the lyrics aren't really hopeful, and like they're not. The whole thing just seems like he's letting it surround him, and by the time you get to like, your Blackest Balloon, it has taken like a not even a 180, but just like backed up farther into that corner. But then I feel like you fully feel him let go once you hit that song, and that last part of the album is just all hell breaks loose for him.
Rage, just pure rage. Yeah. I'm gonna completely shift gears because there's something I wanted to bring up, and I don't want to forget. On Unlocked, on track 7, it's an instrumental, and I haven't looked into it. I should have looked it up, but maybe I always thought, oh, this is a cool track because it's just it's Kenny doing his thing. You can kind of listen to it and experiment, or experience it. But then there's like some chatter at the end, and it sounds like somebody's saying something along the lines of, "I forgot to press record." If you turn it way up, it sounds like somebody's saying something about I didn't press record, or I didn't record it, or something like that. And I wonder if on track 7, like you're saying with Denzel, he did just freestyle and everything.
Yeah.
If he went in, they dropped the beat, Denzel does his thing, and fucking Kenny forgot to press record.
That's crazy to think about. I've never noticed that, but it wouldn't be surprising if he was just like, if they let that slide, and then he just
left it.
and then after the album, Kenny threw in all those little vocal things he did.
Maybe
because I love the beat, and I would kill to see him do something over it, but it fits so like well in the album leading into Cosmic, where it's like, and I also love, one of my favorite things that you said in your Unlocked reaction was that it felt like Kenny doing sort of his solo. Like you said, there's like a solo in rock music, and I was like, I've never thought about it that way, but it's just so cool to think about it like that, because it really feels like the floor opens up and he makes he does his thing before Denzel comes in with Cosmic and just blows everything up. And I love the way that album like builds into it, and just I think the way they do the track list is just the perfect order for me. I just think it's so well done.
It flows together so well. Yeah. What I really, really enjoy, especially, I assume you must listen to the instrumental version too of the album as well. But it's cool to listen to that and go, holy shit, like Denzel has brought so much into the music. But then listen to the version with vocals and hear the vocals, and then go, holy shit, even Kenny's doing a lot with the vocals, with all the distortions and tweaks and sounds and stuff.
Yeah, that's the craziest thing I noticed is I remember when the instrumentals came out, my brother and I were listening to them, and he sent me, I don't know if we were together or not, but I think he sent me a link to the Diet one, and he was like, this is just like a completely different like song without his vocals. Like, I can't believe how minimalist and like brought back it is, because it's just like they have the weird conga things, and they have just like the kick and snare, and then the rest of it is just like a lot of his vocals just being like the main presence of this track, but also the instrumental is what makes it what it is. So it's like, to be able to do something so little, and I'm trying to remember if it was Diet that Kenny talked about. There was a song he talked about, I think, from Unlocked, where he said something about it, about him like completely reinventing it because of how like it was too busy or something. I don't know if I'm making that up, but maybe I heard something about it. But it really does feel like he realized how much Denzel can do using his voice as an instrument, but it's still so masterful what Kenny decides to leave in, and none of it seems to clash with everything Denzel's doing.
It is a great blend. It's a great blend. of sound and vocals, and yeah, it is really, it's such a cool project.
Yeah, I really love it, and I don't know, like, if you had the chance. I know you said you were gonna watch the animated thing, which I
did.
assumed you did.
Yeah, that was
And
really fun
that's
too.
wonderful. That's like the first time I ever heard it because they put it out like right before they put out the album, so it was very much like removed, or it was like you kind of saw that as your first experience.
Oh,
And
that's
when I
cool.
first watched that, they don't leave in the full song, or they leave in like sometimes it's like going in and out. And so when I watched it the first time, I was confused because I was like, this doesn't feel like I'm seeing the entire song, or I'm like understanding it. But then like when I listen to the project and you start to see like how everything divides up, it makes a lot more sense. But it's such a cool experience going in because you're like, I've never heard anything like this,
Yeah.
especially with the visual experience along with it.
Now,
And it's just bizarre.
do you know? I assume, is there a story about like their first work together getting leaked or something like that? Because that's the whole basis of that animated thing. What, I never looked into that. What was the story behind that?
I think it was mostly just a like narrative they made up for the thing, because the funny thing is, the other thing I have to mention that people will remember is the day it was going to be released, Kenny and Denzel, when I think it was an Instagram live, and they did a whole thing where they both pretended like Denzel was like actually pissed at Kenny for like leaking something, and they did this whole thing on Instagram live where they were like yelling at each other, and people were like, what's wrong? And then
That's awesome.
and then they like put the video out, and it led like right into, I think their like Instagram thing like led into the short film. So like he comes into the studio and then like everything happens.
Oh, that's brilliant.
And it's really cool. Like it was super fun because everyone was like, I don't know, did he actually leak something? Like what? Like, because they're very funny. Their dynamic is hilarious together. And I think it really showed in the whole thing. I mean, I love the animated film. I thought it was just so cool how they did the different styles and stuff.
Yeah,
it's really interesting.
That's the first time I've ever wanted to see an argument on Instagram and then watch it actually turn into something useful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And then I don't know how much you got into Unlocked 1.5.
I didn't listen to that. I should have. I didn't listen to it though.
Yeah, I definitely would be interested in hearing your thoughts on that. There's mixed reviews. Like overall, the majority is that everyone really likes it, but it's obviously not as good as the original.
Oh, okay.
And I really love it, but there's like maybe 2 or 3 tracks that I think fall short in terms of like the production, because it's mostly they replace the instrumental and then they add a feature to Denzel's hook and maybe a verse or something.
Okay.
So it's like other producers, basically. It's like just producers and other people. So that I think like Denzel and Kenny like, you know, directed it and made sure it had it all come together, but it was like all done with the addition of other people. And there's some really, really good stuff in there that I still listen to now, but the original definitely is like the version that has everything just right.
It seems like Kenny and Denzel, I mean, they just click, man. Like,
yeah,
it's so cool to have an animated movie to go with the album, but I would have loved to just see a film crew in there filming them. And that, like, just like The Cave with his YouTube channel, like having the whole album done like that would have been so fascinating.
Yeah, I would have killed for something like that. I think it's like right down their alley too to do something. But I think there is like, at least it's been talked about that they're planning on doing an Unlocked 2, which would be amazing, because I just think there's so much they could do within that world that they've like created and the sound they've created, and they could just crank out another, you know, 7-song, 8-song album, and I'm sure it would be amazing.
Well, I think to me, especially coming from Taboo, like I feel like Denzel, I really, really like Taboo. I think it's an excellent album. I kind of feel like it's overrated. I don't like saying that because I don't know really what the pulse is, but it's well done, and it's just so dark, and you can tell Denzel put a lot of thought into it, a lot of effort into it. And so then to go from that into something like Unlocked, where I feel like the same person who made this deep, dark, violent album, who's working on issues, can just flip around and go, you know what, I'm gonna have fun for a while, and just play. And I love it when an artist can just go and play and have fun.
Yeah, and make it like good too, because a lot of times
that helps a lot.
Yeah, a lot of times you'll have an artist turn around from something serious and go into something that's like them having fun, and it just doesn't do as well. And so it's cool to see him take on so many different styles. And the same thing happened with the follow-up to Taboo was Zoo, and then the next year Unlocked. And Zoo is another album where it's like his kind of theme was like doing a very like thoughtful album and then doing like an album where you got to have fun and just it was like bangers and stuff.
Oh, okay.
And so after Taboo, he followed it up with Zoo, which was just sort of his like Miami hip hop influence, like having fun with this producer duo, I think, that he did it all with. But then also going into Unlocked and taking it a step further, I think Unlocked is even more fun, and like it's a completely different genre of rap, but it's still, both of them I think are such a good departure before Denzel is doing what he's doing now, which is about to jump into another very conceptual album that's like trying to tell a story.
I'm excited for that. I haven't listened to the single. I haven't touched anything, but when that album comes out, I'm gonna get on it pretty shortly after, I think.
I think you definitely get a lot of people coming to be interested in that, because it's gonna be like a very nice experience, I think.
Yeah, I am gonna shift slightly to where keeping the journey through hip hop and exploring all the music is still gonna be the core, but as I come to know more artists and hear more music, if somebody I've listened to before comes up with something new, okay, I'll check that out. And just trying to incorporate a little bit more relevancy to the channel. I think people will enjoy that.
Yeah, it's always good, because I've learned, this is from a YouTube standpoint, that you want to have a good, healthy mix of things that are bringing attention to people who are new and want to have a reason to come. And that's like current event things and new things that come out. But what's the most important thing is making things that last a long time and age well. And so like I do videos where I talk about like very topical things, but at the end of the day, I want my content to be something that like, 5-10 years from now you can go back to and it's not going to make no sense,
Sure.
So it's and that's the good thing about what you're doing now too, which is like you can go back and have those really those videos that are gonna age well for a long time, because you can do that with any album. But you can also do the new stuff, and that stuff is still gonna age well, because if the album ends up being something people like down the line, they can always come back. And so at least you have the best of both worlds there, because you can choose either. And if you don't want to listen to something, then you don't have to listen to it, but you're building like a catalog of musicians, and then you can sort of start picking as they come out with new stuff, I guess.
Yeah, I'm getting close to 30 albums so far, which is fairly impressive in my opinion. That's a decent amount of albums.
Yeah.
I wanted to, if you're okay with that, this is way off topic in terms of Unlocked and Taboo and Denzel Curry and stuff, but I watched your video about how YouTube makes you want to quit.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, man, because what you do is clearly totally different from what I do. And
yeah,
I watched that whole video and I was like, I'm so, like, it's weird because in a sense, like I make zero money from reaction videos because they all get copyright claimed, and I can try and fight them, but they just go, no, we own it. It's tough shit.
Yeah.
But in a sense, that's almost a blessing, because I can't chase the algorithm because it doesn't matter. Yeah. There's no point. And so I'm like free from all of that stuff that you were talking about, man. And I don't know if you want to talk about that at all, go ahead, because it was incredibly interesting and depressing at the same time.
Yeah. As is a lot of things. Once I make serious videos, things get very bleak. And then I'm like, I probably should do something that makes people happy. But the basic idea is like, this is my job and this is my income, and so the human side of my brain sees the numbers. And that's the other cool thing, that like even for you, it surprises me that even though you're not having monetary gain off of it, the YouTube, the numbers still, I don't know if they do, but they don't play as much of a role, which for me, like even if I'm getting demonetized, which sometimes happens, like I still care about the growth number because it ends up going into my audience, which obviously rolls back to my income and, you know, what I'm making. But at this point, it's more about audience than income because, you know, once I'm doing fine, it's like there's not really any point for me to be searching after that. But it's tough for a lot of creators because they have this algorithm here, which is the algorithm is the fancy word for how YouTube spits your videos out to people. And everyone knows it's not linear, or else you wouldn't be able to like find anybody if, you know, YouTube didn't have some sort of recommendation system. So it's nice that they have that. Of course, a platform like this couldn't exist without it, because that's how people find your stuff.
Yeah, because there's way too many videos being uploaded every day.
Yeah.
It would just be a wash of stuff you've never heard of, never seen. Who is this guy? Blah, blah, blah. You would never find anyone, like you're saying.
And so the issue is that they like consistency. Same with, you know, your TikTok and your whatever platform it sort of relies on recommending people, even stuff like Twitch. They value consistency, and when they see people coming to your channel, they want to keep giving them the same thing they liked. So you're stuck in this bubble where you're sort of like, I want to do new things, but it also completely affects my job and my community even, you know, because you have less people coming around if you try new things. And so there's that balance there where it's like, how much can I, if I keep staying consistent, sure, my views are going to be great, but do I want to make those videos? And also, the longer I do this, the longer YouTube's going to keep me in this box, and the harder I'll fall when I make something new.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's like a big thing for a lot of YouTubers, whether or not they have a platform. And the best thing you can do is hopefully not care too much about the numbers, which is something that I'm still learning because it's like a human thing. You see the numbers going up, and no matter, I don't have any baseline for like where I want to be on YouTube, but no matter what, I'm going to be, if I want to get to 1 million one day, I'll get to 1 million and I'll go, okay, well, 5 million sounds
exactly
nice, you know?
Yeah. It's weird how there's always that pursuit of just, okay, yeah, that's that milestone. Now the next milestone, and it's extremely strange. Like, why do we always have this need to get the next thing?
Yeah, and the funniest thing is that YouTube, when it comes to numbers, when you break it all down, the numbers they don't mean anything. You know, it's like the amount of views you have, the amount of subscribers you have, is not directly correlated to the amount of views you have.
Right.
And no one will ever say like, oh, the harder you work, the more popular you'll be, or the better your videos look, the more views you're gonna get. Like that's just not how it works. And so you can't have any sort of superiority on the site by numbers because they don't. You're following this like weird invisible way that YouTube brings people to your channel. And of course, like who we are, what we do, and like our personalities and stuff are part of the reason for the draw, but you can't ever equate like a direct number to that. And so it's always going to end up being whatever grabs the YouTube algorithm in the right way.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to find that balance between what makes you happy and what makes them happy. But it's like a sad thing that everyone has to deal with, and it never gets any easier, really.
Well, and what really captured my attention when you were describing it just now, and even in the video, was that it's this weird thing of if you find something that, because I always feel like if you do something that you like, you'll do it a little bit better, you know? And so, you find that thing that you like and it does well, and then all of a sudden that turns into this weird feedback loop that you can't get out of. And how, to me, that was the soul crushing part was I found something I like, and now YouTube has made it my own trap.
Yeah.
That's the worst.
Yeah, it's a scary thing. And like, there's a lot of things you can do to make that easier. But at the end of the day, it's like there's very few YouTubers out there that I know, and they do exist, where they can do anything and people will come to them. And there's a few big creators out there that I can say, they can put up anything, any thumbnail, any title, and it'll always be a hit. And they are people who are good at what they do, but they also have been, lucky to get that type of community that wants them for literally anything they make because they've proven that they can do so. But it's hard to prove you can do so without, possibly risking changing your channel for the worst and having everyone leave because you're doing something new. It's a weird game you have to play, and sometimes it feels very like weird in terms of how much control you feel like you have over your own content you create, I guess. But
right,
that's, I guess, the downside.
What I hate too is what you were talking about, how YouTube pushes stuff, and then from the creator side you experience it, but I feel it from the user side too. Like, if on the rare occasion something new actually does pop up in my feed, something that's out of the ordinary, and I watch it, then the next time I go back to my feed, it's like it's all been scrambled, and now 50% of my feed is related to that one thing. Like the other day I was looking up rototillers because I'm trying to buy a rototiller. Which is, that's middle-aged white dude problems right there. And so I'm watching these rototiller videos, and now when I get on YouTube, it's fucking just rototillers as far as the eye can see. And it's like, I'm really not that interested in rototillers.
Yeah.
And I hate it because I remember when YouTube, it used to feel like more of like a slot machine. You would press refresh and all of a sudden here's all this random crazy shit. But now every time I get on, it's always the same suggested things, and it drives me nuts.
Yeah. And a lot of the issues with that, especially when it's stuff that you're like trying to buy, is, I don't know if you've seen the TV show Succession before.
No, haven't.
I'm like obsessed with it right now. And they had this whole like tiny little bit that for some reason stuck with me, where they talked about it's like a very businessy drama show, but it's very like, I don't know, it's very new and interesting. Everyone loves it. It's like one of those shows where it's like the next Breaking Bad or whatever. But they have this bit where he's talking about he's trying to like invent the company in a new way, and he's like, we need to focus on algorithms that are like, I don't know the word he used, but more lateral rather than trying to stick you with the same thing. Because if you're a buyer of something, just to explain that in a better way, if you're a buyer of something and you want to go buy, an oven or a freaking a grill, you want to buy a grill, and you go online and you want to buy a grill, all of a sudden, you buy a grill and all your ads are grills. Well, you don't need a grill anymore.
I bought one.
You bought the grill. So now the algorithms failed because they're not going lateral and showing you these things around it that you might be interested in. Yeah. But YouTube does the same thing sometimes, where like, I might be interested in things that are like Norm Macdonald, but I don't need to, I might have watched a couple Norm Macdonald clips, but now my whole entire homepage is just like these 30-second Norm Macdonald videos that I do like watching, but like I want to breathe for a second, and I'll go out of my way and find them if I need them. I don't need the whole recommended to be the same thing. Yeah,
that's another thing that's weird about YouTube, I think, both as a user and a creator. And this is something I noticed about your channel that you don't like. Anytime I go to a new channel and they go, hey guys, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe, and we all know how to use YouTube. None of these
seen the videos enough.
Like we don't have to have 45 seconds every time explaining all the steps. We get it. But even YouTube almost seems to be the same way. It's like, oh my God, hey guys, don't forget to watch that same video that you watched yesterday.
Yeah.
I know. YouTube, I already saw that. No, but you loved it. Remember, you even liked it. Watch it again. Like, YouTube, please stop.
Yeah, and you'll get the same video on your recommended for like a month.
Yeah.
Until you finally click on it. And then it's like, and then everyone's wondering why. All the comments are like, who else was brought here by the recommended page? And I'm like, that's YouTube's algorithm.
Yeah.
It's like I think the biggest issue is that they don't focus enough on viewers who like a creator as much as viewers who like a certain type of video, because they look at my content and people who watch me and they go, okay, well, they like Nick, but they also like these commentary videos about the same topic, the same current news topic that Nick just talked about. So if Nick talks about a video that's about David Dobrik, now they want to see David Dobrik. They don't want to see more Nick. They were there for the David Dobrik controversial topics. And I'm like, for some things that's true. If you want to look at like musicians and maybe, try out different music. But a lot of the time, if you've proven that you have a community who keeps coming back to your videos, they shouldn't be looking at the content of your videos. They should be looking at you as a creator and saying, okay, they like this person, they keep coming back, even though this video isn't what they usually do. They have people who like them and come back for a variety of different topics. But it's been a problem that a lot of creators have had for a long time. A lot of times it sounds like a whole lot of complaining from people with the best job in the world, and that is true. It is. I'm super lucky, and I am. But also, everything has its downsides, and you can have the right to complain about anything, I guess. But it could always be worse. So.
Well, I think what it really comes down to, and I was trying to figure out, okay, how do we get back to music?
Yeah, before people click out of here for the algorithm.
But it's to me, I go back to Denzel Curry and Taboo versus something like Unlocked, and fortunately for somebody like him, and in music, well, not all the time though, because sometimes artists take a sharp turn. And everyone freaks out. This is something that's been interesting for me with Kanye. And as I go through his albums, the one thing I cannot emulate is experiencing these albums in real time and how they affected the genre and the fans and stuff like that. But sometimes when an artist takes a right-hand turn all of a sudden, like Yeezus, and Yeezus just drops in with this all distorted sound and shit, and then people freak out. Yeah. And they want to like turn it off and go away. And I don't know, like, the artistic freedom is so important, and it can be something that destroys an artist or raises them even higher. But I think it kind of blends well with this idea with YouTube and just creating in general, and having the idea of I can create whatever I want. And at least if I create something within, that sphere of whatever I want to make, then if it fails, at least it's my fault and not somebody else's fault. It's not like YouTube just going, well, we're not going to show you, or like a record label saying, well, this is garbage, you can't use this on an album.
Yeah, that's a great thing to have, is that control over, not, I guess, some kind of control over your destiny, I guess, in a very dramatic way, is like knowing that you don't have anyone to disappoint besides, I guess, the people who should matter the most, which is the people who watch your videos. But as you start to get to know your community, you have a better idea of how they'd react to certain things. And like, I can at least say for your community and for my community that like, we could be pretty confident that, the people who've been watching us, from what we've heard, have our backs, whether or not we want to do these different things. And not everyone's that lucky, because they're either thrown into a community too fast and don't have the chance to grow it. So they suddenly have this big audience and they don't know what to do with it, because they're all new people that don't have an idea of what the plan is. And that can like result in not having too many people close in your circle. And then if you decide to change things, people aren't that attached to the idea of just going to the next thing.
Right.
Which, a lot of people have it worse, because if you're on a side of the internet where every video you're getting a whole new comment section and you're not seeing the same faces, that could be a lot scarier of a thing, and it feels a lot more alone as someone who even might have a huge audience.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't really think about that. I have been on the good side of that, in that I typically see the same people commenting.
Yeah,
I think that's a great sign. I like that a lot. And what's really cool is I recognize him. Oh, this guy's here. That guy's here. Oh, cool. It's this dude again. There's one guy, Wesley. He always just posts these massive posts, and they're just wonderful. Wonderful to read. I love them.
That's great. Yeah, that's exactly what you need, because it's like, what else are you going to what else is the point of the comment section if it's just a pit of reviews from people you've never seen before and you don't value their opinion? It's like that. Then it just becomes this disgusting pit of like stuff you don't want to see, because it could get bad fast. But at least for this, we're in a good place.
So let's take that idea and let's throw it on to Denzel Curry, and because I want to say I feel like overall he's a little underrated. He has expressed that opinion in ways that he feels like he's underrated. Sounds like he's got a new project coming out. I haven't listened to Zoo. I haven't listened to Imperial. From what I hear about Imperial, it's a pretty like heavy, kind of just heavy throughout.
Yeah.
So
I'm kind of the same way. I haven't gone too deep into it.
Where do you think he's going to go with this next album? What do you think? How, you know, like you're saying with Zoo and then Unlocked, but now we're going to drop into something a little bit more serious. What do you think is going to be the next album experience?
Now, you can kind of get a good idea of it from the 2 singles that have dropped and then the kind of visuals that he's providing with it. Because the story seems to be around some sort of space western epic that he's putting together, and it's very inspired by Kurosawa, the guy who did Seven Samurai.
Okay.
And so it's a very much like western, like, you know, samurai westerns, like also kind of space.
That sounds cool.
Yeah, and it's very, I think it's going to be a lot more like samples, like old, you know, old time, I don't know the word, like
kind of like Mad Villainy or Unlocked, some of those old styles.
Yeah, just some of those old styled like samples mixed with a lot of really like punchy drums and stuff. Like he definitely seems to be hitting a lot of like it's going to be very consistent in terms of style. I don't know how much he'll switch, but also there's like very little I know about it, and that's like the vibe I get from the first 2, that it's very like punchy and in your face, but he's trying to tell a story here. And I think it's going to be maybe more of a straightforward story than Taboo was, where it's a lot more literal, but I don't completely know, because also I'm not the music lore person to ask.
You know, that aspect right there, that is a challenging thing to. One of the things I like to do in my free time is I also write, and I actually have a book. It's just sitting on my hard drive. I wrote it in present tense, and then I was like, you know what, I need to switch it to past tense because it's just kind of weird. But someday I'll do something with that. But in writing, I learned, what do they call it? Author's knowledge, being the idea being, you know, when you get so wrapped up into writing something and the story and whatever, you develop just an incredible amount of knowledge about the story. And so when you write, it's easy for you to leave out details because they're so obvious to you.
Yeah, yeah.
But then somebody who has no idea, they go, well, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah.
Go, what do you mean? I remember my wife reading some of my stuff, and she's like, you didn't say such and such. Like, we had a conversation about it before, and then she reads it. It's like, you didn't put it in here. I was like, yes, I did. It's right there. She's like, no, you literally did not put that in here.
Yeah.
And so I wonder with Denzel, if, let's just say for the sake of argument, he's going to do something a little bit more straightforward. I wonder if he feels like he has to try and balance that between, you know, if he watched the reaction to Taboo and maybe it wasn't what he was hoping to get, you know, from the crowd, from the audience. If he goes, well, God, now maybe I got to dial it back and make it a little bit more obvious. But then if it's too obvious, it's less interesting. And
yeah, it's definitely a balance, and I think we've learned a lot through artists like Kendrick and even like Tyler the Creator, where their stuff has a lot, like in different ways. Kendrick's a lot more, you know, dramatized and so much more like meticulous about things, and Tyler does a lot of stuff through his production with the vocals telling a story. And I think they both work well in different ways, but they both have this thing where they have like very underlying stories within their music that I could not, if I looked at the lyrics, I wouldn't figure it out in a million years. And I don't know if you've heard of the podcast Dissect.
I have
before.
Yeah.
And I listen to some episodes from them sometimes, especially for Kendrick's music, and I just will sit there and be like, I don't know what I was like. I don't know what the music you listen to, because that's like not what I heard. It's
crazy. I remember after I did To Pimp a Butterfly, I started going through the Dissect stuff, and I was like 6 or 7 episodes in, and then I started looking at Spotify, and I went, holy fuck, there's like 20 episodes. I was like, I can't go through all this. It was so meticulous. It was insane.
It goes so in depth where I'm like did Kendrick know he was was writing about this? Because
It feels that way
I'm
sometimes.
pretty sure. Yeah, it really does. And it's really impressive what people can do with that because, and I love that because it's like music can exist so far outside of this little, you know, this hour long piece of music, and it's not just sound waves. It's like stories and melodies, and the melodies and the music theory can work its way into the storytelling, and it's like I noticed that a big thing with the episode they did on Runaway with Kanye is like
yeah.
the way that the music theory of the notes from the beginning and the way they work within each other, the melody works within each other, like works its way into the sort of feeling that the song actually brings and the narrative that it plays out. And it's cool to hear that, especially with Taboo. You like get this sense of everything working together for this narrative. And even for songs that I'm not like crazy about, like the intro, like Taboo itself, the song
The
is
opening
like,
track.
yeah, and I have songs like that on this album where I'm like, I'm not gonna put this on my playlist and listen to it outside of the concept, like the whole entire album together. And that's how I usually listen to Taboo, is I'll just like start it at Taboo and work my way all the way to the
Okay.
end.
Yeah.
But I do think that they all play a very specific role within the narrative, that it definitely is like a necessary thing that needs to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that was the one thing I had said about it when I did additional thoughts was I think the only flaw about that album is so often, like if I'm going to put on an album or a playlist, whatever, it's going to fit a certain mood that I'm in. And because Taboo does just go through this whole ride and you kind of experience this whole range of emotions.
Yeah, yeah.
If you're in a certain mood, it won't necessarily jive with any mood because it's going to at some point venture away from that mood. And then you're going to, well, now I want to hear this instead of that. And so I wonder if that's why people have a hard time getting into it. Because if you're trying to listen to music for a mood, there are parts that will touch on that mood, but then it's going to deviate away as well.
Yeah, and I really liked that part of your additional thoughts video where you talked about how it just keeps taking turns. Like Taboo starts super dark, but then Black Balloon's kind of this whiplash into like even the beginning like synth build thing that happens. The swell is just takes you out and suddenly throws you into this like blissful chorus, which like if we want to kind of I guess like work our way through the album in a way, coming out of Taboo, Black Balloons is such it might be it's like definitely one of my top 3 Denzel songs, and it is so, it just, the way it sounds is just so much like you're floating. And like that first verse especially, I think might be my favorite verse he's ever done. And I just love the whole thing, the whole translating my thoughts and feelings, I pivoted to the pad, the way the flow goes down in the first verse. It's like you can feel the flow of it, and it's so jagged but smooth at the same time, and I just think it's so well written and performed.
I got so hung up on the chorus. There was a day at work, I was like, just all day, I was like, let it flow, let it flow, let it flow, let it flow. I was like, get the fuck out of my head. But I mean, I loved it, but it blew me away how fast it just got stuck in my head because it was so catchy.
Yeah, and I don't know if you heard on the same session of I know you've seen the Bulls on Parade cover because everyone has. But he performs Black Balloons in the same session, and I don't know if you've seen that performance.
No, I don't think I have seen that.
So that performance is really great also. And it's one of my favorite live things he's done. And he has Sampa this great female musician, do a verse on it and sing on the chorus, and it's wonderful. But then he also I think she replaces Goldlink's verse, but then in the Bulls on Parade one, he puts the verse from Sirens in there.
Yeah.
And that's the part I meant to talk about, is him placing that part in there is it's so like copy and paste, but it just works so well that it almost seems like it was like made for the song, because the band is like playing holding to this very like straight four on the floor beat, like almost, and there's this tension between the flow of his verse and how rigid the instrumental is. And every time I hear it, I have that tense feeling where I'm like, he's like teetering on this beat, but he's so like just into it, and everyone's so in the pocket that it like it's just like such a well performed verse and song and everything.
Yeah, it was awesome because I saw that performance first before I heard anything of him. So when I got to Sirens, I was like, oh shit, I didn't realize it was from this song and he had put it on there, which made it even more impressive because, you know, I didn't think that it was necessarily a freestyle that he had done, but I thought, oh, okay, maybe he just wrote up something for the song. No, he took something from his own song and it dropped in. It's like, wow, that's incredible.
And I love how many things with him I can, like, it doesn't just end at the album. Like, I don't know if anyone told you about the Black Balloons reprise with Flying Lotus.
Oh, but so someone mentioned it to me, but I haven't listened to it.
So I looked into it today because I love the track, but I never really looked into its relation to Taboo. And at least on Genius, it says that it's a sequel to Black Balloons, but it's a prequel to The Blackest Balloon. So it like falls somewhere in that album. And I don't really think it adds to the narrative of Taboo, but it really feels like a part of the universe. And I think like those 3 tracks are like very well, like they work together very well as like a cool little trio story.
I'll have to check it out. It's Flying Lotus.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to check that one out. It would be fun to hear those 3 in order, just to have that experience.
I haven't even done that yet, but I think they both, the feeling of the 3 work really well.
Yeah.
It's almost like its own little light, gray, dark, because literally like it works that way. Like that song falls right in the middle of the feelings between the 2 songs, and I think it's like, it's just cool how he can bring that universe outside of just the album.
Yeah.
Like it's its own little spin-off, and I think that's awesome.
I'm really excited about this coming album from him. And I worry that maybe I'm getting a little too excited for my own good. Like I don't want to, one thing I really try and do with music is just let it be what it is. You know, like, it's easy to get excited about certain artists and stuff like that, but just let it be what it is and really try and experience it for what it is. But then sometimes an artist does something and you're like, man, they're gonna blow up. I like this guy is so good. I know the next one's gonna be amazing. Like he's just keep breaking barriers. It's gonna, at any moment he's gonna break out and just blow up the scene. And I kind of feel that way about Denzel right now.
Yeah, and I if you're worried about getting too excited, I'm already over the limit. Like there are certain artists though where I'm like, I know what I'm about to expect from them and I know I'm going to like it. And that's something with Denzel where it's like, I've heard what I need to hear from these first 2 singles and I already know what I'm expecting. And so I think that's a good indication of like how I think it'll go. There's some albums where I walk into it and I'm like, I don't know what's about to happen, which you know happens pretty often. It happens with a lot of artists, like Tyler the Creator especially. Is like every time a new album comes out, you're just like completely flips the switch on everything you knew about him and does something completely new, and you're like okay, well I guess that's that. And it does always work though, and that's the cool thing is like, but if you're looking for more of whatever he brought to the table, don't, because it's not gonna come back.
Right. I have really grown to enjoy Tyler the Creator a lot. And I think, like you said, the fact that this guy just keeps coming out and kind of, I don't want to say necessarily reinventing himself, but putting himself in a new space every time. It's always a new space and he does it so well. And I feel like Call Me If You Get Lost I feel like that was his best album so far. I mean, obviously people have their favorites and stuff, but I just feel like what he did there from top to bottom was really, really well done.
Yeah.
Really well done.
It's just so, there's albums where I'm like, I don't think the story or narrative worked as well for me, but I can't deny that it's so straightforward and clean and well done that you can't, you just forget about all the things that might have lacked from previous projects. And I thought I flip-flop so much with him because sometimes literally in the span of like 3 days, I can be like, okay, Flower Boy's my favorite. Okay, Call Me If You Get Lost, my favorite. And Call Me If You Get Lost was my favorite after it came out for a while. And then like a month or two ago, I listened to Igor,
Oh
and
yeah, sure.
it I listened to it. It was like one of my top albums from the year it came out, but it never was my favorite Tyler project, and I didn't really feel it the same way a lot of people did. And then the night I listened to it, it's like sometimes I listen to music and a switch just flips and all of a sudden I just get it.
Yeah.
And that night I got it and I was like, this is the best Tyler the Creator album. Like I there was just something specific about the way I was hearing it and like the time of the night and everything aligned, and I was like, that's what I love about music, because it's like you can listen to something so many times, and I've probably listened to Igor dozens and dozens of times before that moment, and I took a break. I probably hadn't heard it in a good 6 months or a year, and I come back to it and it's like I'm hearing it for the first time, and it's like it all opens up to me.
Yeah. Well, and this goes back to what you were saying too earlier about creating content and trying for it to be relevant, but also trying to do something new, but also not trying to get stuck in a box and all this other stuff. And I mean, feel like Tyler is just this great embodiment of constantly changing, always doing something he's interested, not getting stuck in a box. Somehow he's doing it so well that his audience keeps following him. Like he's mastered it. He's mastered it.
Yeah, he really has. And it's like, he's gonna, if he does this another 1 or 2 times, I mean, he already has done it, he's gonna go down as one of those people that just has like such a solid discography that you can't deny his talent there. And it's crazy how young he still is and how new he still is to the game, while having like I don't want to relate him to anyone because someone's gonna get mad at me, but he's building a, I was gonna say he's building a Kanye like discography, and I was like, someone's gonna think that I'm saying he has.
I don't think it's a far off claim, dude. I really don't.
1 or 2 more albums, and like, I mean, I like the past 3 he's put out more than my favorite 3 Kanye albums for me. So it's like, obviously everyone's going to have their differences, and you have to still factor in his influence on music itself and how much Kanye's changed it from that far back. And I don't see the two the same way at all. But I do think he is like one person that I can totally, that's just going to be one of the greats of the past decade, just because of he's already having influence, and he's already recreated his sound 3 times, I mean, probably 5 times, 6 times, but at least the past 3 albums I think are going to be his, like, the legacy he probably leaves behind to the general public. And it's just cool to see, and I see that so much with like the other, which will work back into Taboo, is that my three favorite rappers right now, at least, Denzel, JPEG, and JID, are all on this album, and that's just such a cool thing to see, because they all work together every once in a while, but it's like, especially because this album came out before I think I knew any of them, it's just like wild to see where they've come since then, because they've all grown to be such great artists. And I don't think you've gotten into JID too much, but
I haven't done any of his stuff yet. Not yet.
But you'll definitely get a lot more people talking about him, because he's looking great, and I think he's coming out with a new project hopefully this year. It's been like a long time coming, but he's very easy to get into, because he's got 2 major like album releases, and they both are very different sounds, but give you a very good idea of who he is. And his verse on Sirens is great, and I think it breaks up the song a lot, and takes it into this very like smooth, and he has a lot of like range when it comes to what kind of verses he does. He has very aggressive verses, he has very like singy verses where it's like him singing and mixing it with rapping and stuff, and he has verses that are just like all like R&B, beautiful vocals, like,
oh, that's cool. Very cool.
Yeah, he can do it all, and it's like his talent definitely showed there. I do want to see more stuff with him and Denzel, just because I know they can. I mean, look at what's the track they put out, Bruh, they put out last year. is this track between them that you should listen to. It's just a single they put out, and it was one of the best songs of last year that a lot of people kind of missed out on because it came and went so fast. But it's just like this, just straight to the point, like rap song, like really hard beat, but just like lets the vocals do their thing, and it's you really see them have this chemistry. I think that I like between them. Same thing with him and JPEGMAFIA. Which is another one of my favorite.
Yeah.
Black Balloons and Vengeance are my two favorite songs from the album.
I need to listen to more Peggy because I've only listened to Veteran, but of all the albums I've done so far, in terms of just my first listen reaction experience, Veteran was my favorite. Like Peggy took me on such a ride, man.
Yeah, that's the first video I saw from you, and I remember I was like, I think I was with people and I was watching it. And I was getting I get so excited when I get to watch other people experience something that like I love. And I remember the first time I watched it, or the first time it popped up in my recommended or whatever, I was like, I just need to see what he thinks about Baby I'm Bleeding. And I skipped there.
Yeah.
Because I was like, that's like one of my top 3 Peggy songs, and it's like a lot of people obviously love it because it's just such a wild song, and he's crazy in concert too. I actually met him. I forgot about that.
No shit.
Yeah, my friend who has a music type channel, Dev Lemons. I don't know if you've heard of her, but she's like on TikTok a lot, and she has a great channel on YouTube called Song Psych.
Okay.
And she has this podcast with Spotify, where they bring different artists on, and she brought Peggy and TK Maids on. I don't know if you've heard of her, but she's got great stuff too.
Okay.
Not really rap, but more like R&B with hip hop stuff. But yeah, she told me she was having him on, and she's like, oh, if you have a question, like I'll bring you on and you can just like hang out or whatever. And I was like freaking out. I was just in my bedroom with my girlfriend, and I was like, and they like let me in, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm talking to him. And he was just like like Peggy's just the coolest. Like if you're just talking about people who are you just meet him and you're like, that person's just so cool, like way too cool for me to be talking to him. Like he's that person, just like so smooth and confident about everything he's doing, and like it's wild to see him in that.
Well, he's got a great level of give a fuck too. Like he's not rude, but he's also not terribly concerned. I remember my first experience of just him. I was fucking late at night, and YouTube accidentally showed me something new. It was him interviewing at Cambridge, talking at Cambridge.
Oh yeah, I think I saw some of that.
And I sat down to listen to it. I was like, this guy's interesting as shit, man. I love it. And he's like in there cussing, and other people seem uncomfortable about it. He's like, I don't fucking care if you're uncomfortable or not. Like, that's what I think. Blah, blah, blah. Like, I love this guy.
Yeah. He's a very smart dude, and he's got like a lot, like whenever I hear him talk, I'm very surprised with how much he has to say that I've like haven't really heard people talk about before. And he's another person that it's like he's on a different level where he not only produces himself, records, but he mixes, he masters, he distributes,
man.
He promotes himself, and then he goes on tour, and it's just him. He's literally a one-man show from the microphone and the beats on his laptop all the way till he's on his stage, and he's putting auto-tune on his own voice, and he's got his laptop. His shows are literally just a MacBook plugged into an aux cord, and then he can control his auto-tune, and then he literally puts on the instrumental and then just goes crazy. And like he just knows what he's doing. I think he's only had one track on his personal discography that wasn't produced by him, and it was produced by Kenny.
No shit.
Which is the song Puff Daddy. Yeah, and it's literally the first song I ever heard from Peggy, which I think came out in 2018 or something. Because I'm pretty new to hip hop relative to literally everyone who's probably in the comment section. I was getting into it in like 2017 when I was like getting into college. But yeah, that was the first song I heard. And I heard my first JID song the same day because he put out a single that he did with J. Cole on his new album. And just watching them like even grow from 4 or 5 years ago, it's like these people are going to be these huge players in the game. And even though they are popular within the circle of people who are into the hip hop world, everyone has the jokes about like the big people on Reddit hip hop heads is like,
oh sure, right,
Denzel, Peggy, you know, JID, and then you know you have your Tyler and all the other classic names that are thrown out there right now. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but just to have them three kind of all be coming from the same amount of time, like they're all pretty young, but
yeah,
like but definitely finding their way.
Peggy,
I'm just excited for everything.
That guy, man, I feel like in a way he's like my spirit animal. Like I feel like I had sent him an email once. I was drunk and it was a poorly written email. My wife's like, "Don't do it." I was like, "I'm gonna fucking do it." Just to ask him, "Hey, do you want to come on here and just talk or whatever?"
Yeah,
because I feel like he would just be so fun to just kick back, have a couple beers, and just bullshit. Just bullshit.
Yeah.
Don't talk about anything. It doesn't matter, you know?
I mean, it was great. Like he went on that podcast and it's still something Spotify's starting up on this new app they put out. And so there's maybe like 20, 30 people in the like little listening room.
Wow.
And it's just it was so like intimate and personal to hear him like just shooting the shit. And then he was even like, oh, he's like, oh, this is on Tuesday nights. Like, yeah, I'll try to come back and like I can hang some other time and just talk. And you know, just to know that like he came on and he went on a whole I brought up something about Kid Rock's horrible song he put out.
Oh, that fucking thing.
The ain't nobody tell me how to live or whatever.
I almost did a video for that and I was like, no, I just can't.
It is very, very bad.
It was bad.
But he didn't even hear the song yet. I brought it up and he went on a rant about how much he hates Kid Rock for like probably 20 minutes. And I was like, there you go. That's Peggy for you. Yeah. He's always got a lot to say, and I think he's a super smart guy. I mean, to even be able to master and mix and master his music the way he does, which sounds like nothing I've ever heard before, is like very cool and very impressive.
Yeah, he makes fucking I want to call it like an audio landscape, but that's not even accurate. It's like an audio hellscape. Like he puts all kinds of shit in there. It's amazing. Amazing.
Yeah, you hear, I don't know, you like form this vision of what's going on in the song and like how it feels is like sonically, and it's so cool that he can pull so much of that off. And you'll learn when you go through All My Heroes Are Cornballs and you listen to LP that he's another guy who could just like really reinvent his sound and pull it off like seamlessly as if he's been doing it for years, and it's really cool to see.
Yeah, I've been trying to flesh out my April playlist, and I'm like, God, I don't even like. There's like 50 different albums I want to listen to, and in the back of my mind, there's this voice that just says, "Peggy."
You gotta go. Oh you just gotta go back. I mean, it will not disappoint you because you know it's especially All My Heroes Are Cornballs. I think you'll find very special. I think all three albums are. But yeah, it was an interesting thing because he just drops all his project. Like he just will drop the project and be like, here you go. Here's my and like after All My Heroes Are Cornballs, he's like, I don't want to make albums anymore. I want to just do I just want to do singles as I finish them and maybe like mini EPs. And then he goes and makes like two EPs and then makes LP and like is back on his album thing. And I'm like, I never know what to expect from him, but he literally always will surprise me. Yeah. And I love that. I love that about all of those guys.
Yeah. Like it's interesting because there's a band I really like called Chevelle, rock band, and they're pretty consistent in their sound. And if you want to hear a Chevelle album, you can put on one of their albums and you're gonna get Chevelle. And sometimes that's a downside, sometimes it's an upside. But man, when you get these artists where you're like, oh cool, they're putting out another album, isn't that cool? I don't know. It could be a disaster. Some of these guys just go all over the place. You have no idea what's coming next, man.
Yeah, most of them are like that. Like you've seen, every big artist out there has taken this, even outside of rap, like Taylor Swift. You know, people. Yeah. Like you just will hit a 180 and somehow pull it off, and you're still just as successful, if not more than before. And it's like, it's something that you realize from a listener point of view, how like hard it must be. I mean, I'm a musician too, and I constantly become more and more a musician to myself rather than wanting to release things, because I realize that I don't have the brain that a lot of these people have. And, you know, my strengths are in other areas when you start hearing the production and the lyricism and everything. And I'm like, there's guys out there like Denzel who can pull off an album where, and if we're talking about like people who are producing too, like Tyler and Peggy, where from front to bottom they can handle every single part of it, from the lyrics and the story, and come away with a project that's like amazing, which mostly happened with a room of just like them and a notepad.
Yeah.
And maybe a couple other people who are helping produce the song. Like, I mean, even with Black Balloons here, you have, I think, how many people wrote on this? I don't know, like 5 people maybe. And it's like, but then you hit a song like Ricky, and it's like just him.
Yeah.
And then you're like,
yeah,
well, what am I? It's like, where is the? I don't know. It makes me wonder what the process is, if he's like getting in a room with a bunch of writers, or in the booth by himself, because I'm gonna assume Unlocked was just written by him.
I mean, Unlocked, it feels like just a total freestyle session. I mean, I'm sure him and Kenny sat down together and were like, well, okay, what kind of beat do you want? Because that's what they always do on The Cave. You know, what are you feeling like? What are you sounding like? What do you want to do? But man, I really wish maybe they did record it and they're just waiting to release it or something. But it would have been so cool to see a Cave episode for that album.
Yeah.
It would have been fucking awesome.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I would love that for a lot of his stuff, because Kenny has he's starting to do more and more like collab albums, like the one with him and Rico Nasty, and the one he did with I'm blanking on, he does stuff with Idols, which I'm sure, I don't know if you've heard that, because that's more of they're more into like the rock side of things, which is interesting to hear that he can do that genre.
Yeah.
And get away with that. And he's done I'm trying to remember if he's done tracks with, there's another artist I know that I can't think of right now that he produced for, which was like another thing that was out of his, like Dominic Fike, he did a song with, and so he can like hit really hard rap stuff like Cosmic. He can do the weird, like the punk rap stuff with Rico Nasty, and he can do Idols and do metal and rock type stuff. Man. And then he can go and do Dominic Fike, which is just like a pop song. And so you're like, he's this guy who can do like everything. And sometimes people get iffy on his production because they don't feel like he has nailed down the specific sound that makes you know it's Kenny. But you hear something like Unlocked, and it's like, why does it matter if he has if he can do these other things, when he can do something that I think is more inventive than most of the projects you see out there that get praised for their production, and it's super interesting from just the instrumental.
It's such a great ride. It's just so fun to listen to. You can tell. I feel like when I listen to that album or EP or whatever the fuck you call it, I feel like I can hear him having fun. He's having fun. He's just throwing all this shit in there, all these samples and lines from little shows and movies, and twisting Denzel's voice around, and they're just having fun.
Yeah. And it's nice to have that break. And that's kind of like the album that fits me as a person, because I'm like I like the vibe of it, and I like the feel, and I like feeling like everything's cohesive, and the melodies and the rhythms and everything, and I can put it on and I can turn off my brain and have fun.
Yeah.
And I love going over to Taboo and experiencing that whole thing, and I love doing that with every other artist that I listen to. But the reason I love Unlocked so much is because it represents it feels like it represents me so well, which is someone who just like likes getting to the chase and likes not thinking about everything too much, and just like pours it out there, and then cleans it up before you could possibly get bored.
Yeah.
It's like over before you know it, and you want it to be 3 times as long, but it's just done, but it works.
That's great.
That's how the music is, you know?
Yeah, that's really cool. We're at an hour and 10. I feel like that's a good closer right there. That was a great wrap up right there. Do you have any final thoughts you want to share before we cut this off?
I mean, I wrote way more notes than I thought I was gonna.
Oh, dude, I stopped writing notes. The first couple episodes of these, I was like, oh, I'll write down questions beforehand and think about stuff.
Yeah.
And then it's just these conversations take off on their own, which I love. I think that's what makes them fun.
That's the way to do it, because
but I don't write anything down anymore. If you have anything written down you want to talk about or ask, go for it, man. By all means.
I'm trying to see if I touched on all of my extra notes from stuff outside of it. I think that's everything. Like I went through like every single song because I was like, I don't know if he's gonna want to do this in chronological, but like I'm happy it was the way it was because I just got to. Sorry, I talk a lot. I know
That's the whole point, man. That's why we're here.
I'm always scared that people. I'm sure the people in the comments will be nice. But
and you just mentioned something that reminded me. I do a terrible job. Like, first of all, I'm pretty bad at trying to organize these, and I've got like 5 or 6 people I'm in communication with to like set up for the next ones. And then it's like, okay, yeah, we'll meet up, and then we just start. And I don't tell them what we're going to talk about. I don't tell them if they can ask questions or not. Like, we just drop in.
That's the way to do it, though, because it makes just for, you just let it go, and it goes from thing to thing. And we'll hop down rabbit holes that last like 10 minutes, and we talk about the YouTube algorithm, and people will be like, I thought I was listening to. I'm talking about Denzel.
We're talking about Unlocked. Now it's the YouTube. Yeah, right. The worst part is for me at the end when I go through and I'm getting ready to post it, because I'll try and put timestamps in for like, okay. And it's like, well, we talked about this for 2 minutes, and then it was this thing for like 4.5, and then we were back over here again. And it's like, I don't know. It was 12 minutes about this.
Yeah, it's pretty impossible to segment it, especially because it's kind of like everything kind of flows into each other, and there's no like stopping points or whatever.
Yeah.
But at least you help as much as you can with these people, these listeners.
Oh shit. Well,
thank you for having me,
dude. That was so much fun.
I got to talk.
That was so much fun. It was nice to hang out with you, chat with you, meet you. That was great.
Yeah, of course.
And I look forward to the next Denzel project for sure. I know you do as well. And maybe I don't know. I mean, I haven't had a repeat guest yet, but maybe if nobody else jumps onto the topic of the new Denzel album, maybe you and I will talk about it when it drops.
I'm sure many people will, but if people want to give it to me, I will gladly take it.
And maybe we'll actually talk about the album.
Maybe. We'll see. Well, I mean, if we do, we'll tie it all back together. But at some point, I'd love to chat again. And of course, I'm always open communication. If you ever want to shoot me a message,
awesome.
I'll be back unless the people hate me. We'll see.
Good. Sounds good, man. All right. Well, everybody watching, thank you, and we will see you soon.
Bye.